Hey guys, welcome back.
We're starting up a new series here that's going to be going through each one of our points of awareness in our 3 pillars that we've got. We're going to be focusing on the battle pillar first, and we're starting with those false beliefs. That's what we're exploring here in this episode, and it's all about identifying the enemy strategies that he does to frustrate your exploration of this point of awareness, and also some counter strategies that you can deploy to actually get moving, grow in awareness, and start experiencing the fruits.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of those false beliefs, actually all of them, are lies. And so we also
Spoiler
counter
alert.
with truth. So stick around.
Cool. See you in there.
Yo.
Hey, welcome back.
I'm excited about this.
Tell me about this.
What we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be talking about the pillar, the unique battle pillar. And we're talking about the first point of awareness in the unique battle pillar.
Okay. Yeah, this is really the beginning of another series, you guys. So we introduce our 3 pillars of unique design, unique mission, and unique battle. And what we want to do is dive deeper into the 5 points of awareness that we have for each one of those pillars. So we're going to be focusing here first in the next couple of weeks here on unique battle and all the points of awareness that are in there. And there's great benefits that we want to share of growing in awareness and self-knowledge in each one of these points of awareness. And the fun thing is, you guys, every single one of us can grow in awareness of these areas. We pick these things because by human means, with a little bit of reflection and some grace, we can come to grow in awareness of these things. And there's great benefits to these things. We explore all of them in our academy, but we're going to be exploring them here on the podcast.
Yeah. So the 5 points of awareness for unique battle are false beliefs, emotional triggers, wounds, vows, and your predominant fault.
Okay.
And the reason why we chose those, I mean, just generally speaking, they are gateways in. Like they're ways that the enemy can really work with us and throw us from here and there and all over the places.
Yeah, it can kind of impose his will, so to speak, on our lives. All right, so when we think of the unique battle pillar, it's answering the question, what's standing in the way? Like, what's standing in the way of us becoming more of who we are, unique design, and fulfilling more of our purpose, unique mission? Okay, so our focus today, let's get right into it. All right.
Yeah.
So our focus today is going to be on these false beliefs, Aaron. Tell us about false beliefs.
Yeah, first I want to define the word belief.
Okay.
And how we define it, and also how the dictionary defines it. Belief is an acceptance that a statement is true or that something exists. It's trust, faith, or confidence in someone or something. Our definition of a belief is a thought that we keep on thinking that feels true to us. Even if intellectually we know it's not true, it still feels very true. And it feels very true because I think there's a lot of different reasons why we hang on to these false beliefs. But they seem useful.
Okay.
Or protective in some way. Or sometimes we're just completely unaware that we have them and we don't really know how to deal with them, or we don't know that we're holding on to these beliefs.
Yeah, I think a reason why our beliefs will feel true to us is because they align with our experience. And so when we come to how a human being knows something, we don't just know things intellectually. We're designed to know things with our entire being. And so there's an emotional involvement with that knowledge. There's even like a physiological state that's involved with that knowledge. And so your beliefs are, involved not just the intellect, but just the state of your body and even your emotions as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so why we chose false, now obviously false beliefs are beliefs that we believe are true, that feel true, but are not true. Right. And so the enemy uses this to bring us into psychological compatibility. That's his end game. Because if we start to think like him, guess who we're not thinking like?
God, yes.
Christ,
That's
right? Put on the mind of Christ.
Put on the
St.
mind
Paul
of Christ,
says that to us.
Versus put on the mind of the enemy, right?
Right. And when we are drawn into that psychological compatibility, we start doing the same things that they start doing. We start to, our compatibility moves in in all, like we start to feel the same way. We start to do the same things.
Yep.
And so that is their strategy. That is the enemy strategy there. To bring us into that psychological compatibility, to believe these lies. So there's different types of lies. There's lies about God, lies about our lives, lies about ourselves, others. And then there's another form of lies. And that's actually what we're going to be addressing today.
Okay.
I want you to kind of look at your belief systems almost like an onion. And this top layer of lies that I'm going to cover right now, right after this, is that first layer that you need to peel back in order to get down to those other beliefs, and lies about God and yourself and others and your life. We need to address these first. It's kind of that first line of defense in the battle, right? We need to get through it first. And these beliefs or these lies that the enemy tells us it's a little bit of a meta concept, okay? So stick with me here. It's our beliefs or the lies about our beliefs. The lies about our ability to reason through things or our ability to choose. It's really these lies that are against these spiritual powers of our soul, which are our intellect and our will.
Okay. So Aaron provides a lot of content. I provide some of the structure here. So what we're getting at here is, as we're going, and this is how we're going to structure this podcast series, is we're going to just present each one of these 5 points of awareness that we have for each one of our 3 pillars. And then we're going to tell you how the enemy seeks to kind of frustrate our ability to grow in awareness of these things, because there's great benefits to growing in awareness of these things. But first, awareness of how the enemy tries to frustrate our growth and knowledge in these areas, but then what are some strategies that we can do to counter, okay? So we're really going to be helping you go on the offensive in this spiritual battle here. One of the things that I'm really excited about of just growing in awareness of this of this point of awareness, the false beliefs in your lives, I think there's a couple of things. I mean, it starts to get you unstuck. It starts to identify where there's areas of resentment in your life, and you start to move away from those areas of resentment as you start to identify the lies. Because lies, like living from a lie, it just has a way of breeding resentment. It has a way of breeding more divorce and disconnect with people. We think a lot of the times that these things are being protective and they're going to draw us into relationship, but they really do the opposite. Christ says, by the fruits, you will know them. And so that's a benefit to really growing aware of these things. So when we start to see ourselves going down a familiar path, we can be like, okay, this seems like I'm experiencing some fruits of that false belief that I captured a while ago. Or even in your nightly confession or recollection, you can kind of look and see those false beliefs that you're aware of and be like, okay, where did this guy show up again today?
Yeah.
And when you grow aware of these things, guys, you're so much better at recognizing when you're in situations that trigger that false belief, or when you find yourself kind of moving into conformity with that false belief, and you catch it earlier on. And this starts to really save a lot of it saves relationship, really what it does. Some of the fruits that I've seen in my life is even, I tend to even find myself getting defensive. I found myself getting really defensive in my marriage. And there's this false belief oftentimes that when Aaron would introduce something new, I would perceive it as some sort of an attack. I don't do that anymore. Even today, when we were planning this out and I was kind of trying to even bring some structure into this, there was a point where I thought we could have gotten a little bit more heated. And we didn't. Yeah. And it was just kind of allowing, it really came from that awareness in me, I know, in myself, of where I have found myself going defensive from a false belief that's like, I need to protect myself, or Aaron is imposing something on me against my will or something like that. And it's allowed us to just, even in this case, allowed us to put the podcast series together in peace, right? Yes. So there's great benefits of growing in awareness of these things. Yep. Ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a couple other things too. So they frustrate our relationship with God, others, but also they frustrate our pursuit of our mission, our God-given mission, and to utilize our gifts and our talents well, and really short circuit like any effort we make to live into these things. Yeah. I mean, guys, lies are at the root of everything. Everything. I love that quote by St. Joan of Arc. All battles are first won and lost in the mind. And it's true. And a lot of people will hear that quote and they get frustrated and feel powerless because they go, I don't know where to start. Like what I mean, thoughts are so elusive. Like they kind of slip right through your fingers and you're like, what? I don't even know where to start. Like, which ones do I focus on? Well, we're going to give you something to focus on, actually. We're going to give you those top layer beliefs and those lies that we believe, and we're going to challenge those.
Cool.
Today.
All right. So the strategy here, or the podcast, what is it that the enemy is doing to frustrate your ability to grow in awareness of these false beliefs? And then what are some strategies that we can do to counter that, and so we can grow in awareness of these things and start to experience some of the fruits of it?
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's do it.
All right.
So lie number one.
All right. Enemy strategy. Lie number one.
Yes. Because that's what he uses, are lies. And here's another thing. The enemy's really good at telling a lie. So like, it's not as easy as you think. Like there's usually like 90% of it true, and then 2% false.
Cool.
But it still makes it a lie. Okay. So lie number one, what we think isn't that important. It's what we do that matters.
Ooh, sounds like Batman.
Yeah.
It's not who I am. It's what I do that matters.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
So there's a truth and a lie in that. Okay. Like all good lies, it's always colored, or like, in a truth sandwich, and then that little bit of meat or whatever, or that hair.
Rotten meat.
The hair that's in your
Dung in the
sandwich.
Brownies. Yes.
So the truth in that is what we do does matter.
Okay.
That makes us a moral subject, and we choose to do well. We are not saying that is thrown out. So what we do does matter. The lie here is that what we think isn't important. Because here's the truth. Your thoughts lead to what you do. So it's changing both things. It's not an either or. It's not like, oh, it's just this over here, and then this, we just kind of can forget about that. It's both. And one actually is a consequence of the other.
Yeah. So they're meant in the proper order of things. Our interior life is made visible in and through our bodies. Okay. So while it is better to feel inclined to punch somebody in the face because you think that they're attacking you, and then you withhold and you don't do that, like that's good. It's much better to have a mindset of, okay, this person isn't really attacking me. If they're not, right? Sometimes when they are attacking, punching is okay. But in this case, like we're putting on kind of a thought that is more true, that inclines us to act in integrity with our interior life. Okay, so it kind of goes back to, definitely goes back to the Sermon on the Mount. You have heard, don't lust after, don't commit adultery.
Yeah.
Right. So the action of don't commit adultery. But even if you desire to commit adultery in your heart, like there's a problem. You've already done it. Okay. Because the Lord understands the way that the human person has been designed, because he was a designer, right? What is invisible will make its way visible. And so while, yes, it's great to there's a season of growth in holiness where we are white knuckling, but that's not the end of the journey. And that white knuckling is when our external actions that Aaron is talking about is not aligned with our internal actions and our emotional state that's driving us one way, and then we're just kind of short-circuiting it at the action area, okay? The Lord wants to bring us into integrity so that our external actions are truly glorifying God in integrity with our interior.
Yeah, and honestly, we'll get into this later, actually. I think I'm going to talk about this later.
Okay,
yes,
cool.
I am. Okay, so it's our thoughts that influence what we do. So both we actually, for real change and transformation to happen, they both have to change. So really, the sentences in our mind, our thoughts, affects how we feel, and then we are inclined to act from that place. This is actually from our catechism. It's Catechism 1763. Feelings or passions are emotions or movements of the sensitive appetite. Pause. That incline us to act or not act in regard to something felt or imagined to be good or evil. So there needs to be a perception. There needs to be a thought. This thing is good or evil. Right? And then you feel something in your body. and it moves you to act or not to act. That's how it works.
Yeah, and
this is in our catechism.
And you said the word move, and I really like the way the catechism says it with inclines.
Yes.
Okay, so inclines us. It doesn't mean that it moves us against our will.
Yes, we always have to will it.
But there's now an inclination towards a certain act, right? And this is where we're talking about the white knuckling. I perceive this guy is attacking me. I feel this emotion of defensiveness. I feel inclined to punch back or something like that, which may not necessarily be aligned with the reality of the situation. Okay, so maybe I withhold my fist, but I still interiorly feel inclined to assault. Okay, that's kind of what we're highlighting here.
The Lord wants to work with that, though.
Yeah.
The thing that's inside. You know, he wants to transform that so that when that opportunity comes up again, right? Let's say you want to punch somebody again, that's lessened a little bit, or it's completely eradicated.
Yes.
And he can do that.
Yes. So by nurturing a false belief, say for this case, that somebody is assaulting me or like confronting me or something like that, and I need to be defensive, this starts to actually change our state so that we are very easily triggered into this posture of defensiveness and inclined to go on the offensive. Okay. So that is nurtured by habitually thinking this belief again and again and again that I need to defend myself. Right. And there may be other nuanced
or
thoughts
everyone's against me
that kind of come up there that put us in this posture of defensiveness. But if we look at the fruits perhaps here of being in that posture of defensiveness where we go offensive, we can see how this can really start to show up and be triggered very easily in situations where it's really not appropriate. And suddenly it's happening in our marriage. Suddenly it's happening with our coworkers at work. Next thing you know, you're that guy that is just, people are just walking on eggshells around you because they never know what's going to set you off because you're just charged to kind of go in that defensive posture and then eventually go offensive.
Yeah, bringing it back to the root of the thought. It's like if you are a gardener and you have like a ton of weeds and you're like weed whacking the weeds just at the top, they're coming back. You know that they're going to come back, right? You can't be shocked. You haven't uprooted them. And when we have these behaviors and actions that we keep doing over and over and over again, we need to go to the root, to the source of it, which are our thoughts. Guys, our thoughts are powerful. The enemy does not want you to know that these are the root of what you are doing and what you are feeling and what you're choosing. He doesn't want you to know that.
I want you to focus on your actions.
Yes.
Just your actions.
Just change those, right? Just change those.
You can look very pious externally, but so did the Pharisees, right? Whitewashed tombs, they were called.
Yeah. Yeah. We want to get to the root of it too. So if you ever coach with me, you'll know I'm like not going to sit there and give you actions to do. I'm not. Nope. I don't want to because it doesn't get to the root of it.
Plucks the heads from the dandelion.
This is also scriptural. You know, St. Paul says in Romans 12:2, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. He doesn't say be transformed by the renewing of your behaviors. Right? And so we want to understand why he's saying that. Well, we do. And we know this even scientifically, too. This isn't just in scripture or catechism, which is actually enough evidence for me. But scientifically, we know that when we have a thought in our mind and it's brought to our conscious brain, there's all these molecules of emotion that go through our body and we start to feel them. And then we move towards that thing or away from something.
Yeah. And if you have a lot of these false beliefs that are there that are unaddressed, eventually those molecules of emotion start to become toxic to your body. Right. And then we see a lot of psychosomatic diseases that are now popping up in terms of like even constant anxiety can bring about ulcers or just other ailments that by God's design, when we believe lies, we get sick. And it's not because God is so evil and he wants to punish us, but he wants us to grow aware of the reality of living apart from him and apart from truth. We were not created for that. It's a trajectory towards death. I
just remembered a quote and I think I forgot it, but let me just see. Okay. It's mental health it means that, oh gosh, I'm going to screw this up. But mental health is the commitment to reality at all costs.
Cool.
To reality at all costs.
I like it.
Commitment to reality, commitment to facts, commitment to truth at all costs. That is what mental health is like grounded in.
Beautiful.
I can't take credit for that. That's some psychologist out there who said that.
So to kind of wrap this up, we have this belief that like, it's not what I think, it's what I do that matters.
They both matter.
Yeah. And I love giving the final word to St. Mark the ascetic. When you sin, blame your thought, not your action. For had your mind not run ahead, your body would not have followed. Love it.
Boom.
Thanks, St. Mark. Mic drop.
Yeah.
Let's get to the next. Okay. So that's the first one. Your thoughts don't matter. Only only your actions. What's the next strategy that the enemy will use to just even frustrate our exploration of our false beliefs?
Kind of like a thought that looks a little bit like this. It's like, I can't really control what I think. You know, but I can't help but think this way. I've always thought this way. I'm just wired this way.
I hear that a lot. Like, surprisingly, that comes up a lot in coaching. It's just like, I've just never thought of it any differently.
Yeah. Right.
As if you're stuck.
But I mean, and here's the truth of that. Like, we do have 60,000, upwards to 60,000 thoughts a day.
There's a lot.
And we probably don't want to control them all. Right.
Well,
There's
the vast
probably
majority of them we're not conscious of.
Right.
Yeah.
But also, like, we don't want to have to control, like, we don't have time or energy to sit around and try to control all of our thoughts.
Yep. By God's design.
And the lie here is that, like, that we can't control any of our thoughts. We do have that ability to change our thoughts, similar to what we were just talking about. Like, you know, St. Paul wouldn't have exhorted the Romans saying, like, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And, oh, by the way, you actually don't have the ability to do that. You don't have the ability to change your mind.
Yeah, nor do you have the ability to take every thought captive to obey Christ.
Right.
2 Corinthians 10:5. 2 Corinthians 10:5.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So we wouldn't have been asked to do this. That's kind of not nice of the Lord. So we can control what we think, especially when they come to false beliefs, especially when they're coming to like these lies. In fact, we have a responsibility for what we think. So it's not just we have to control it so that we feel better throughout our day, but it's no. At the end of your life, you will be held accountable for this. We say this in Mass. You know, Lord, what is it? I have sinned in thought, word, and deed by my fault. Right? So if we can't, like, why are we saying that in Mass? If we aren't able to sin
Right.
in our... And also, guys, keep in mind, sin happens in the will. Sin happens in the will. We choose it. We have to know that it's a sin and we choose it. Right?
Okay.
And if we can choose to sin in our will, sin in our thoughts in our will, therefore, we can also choose to not sin in our thoughts.
Yeah.
We can choose what thoughts we want to start thinking.
Okay, so going back to this belief, though, Aaron, you said the beliefs are like, you feel these things very, it's not just a lie, but it's a lie that it really feels true.
Yes.
Like, what is it then that is kind of, I don't know, what makes it so sticky? Like, what makes a false belief so much stickier than just a lie that's presented to you that you're just like, no, that's not true.
Yeah, I think this is bringing in the other points of awareness here.
Okay.
I mentioned it before, but I think those beliefs that are really, that just like, they're so hard to get out. I think there's a couple things. We need to repent of it. We need to actively repent of it daily if we need to. There's that metanoia. There's that act of the will where we're coming in and, Lord, I repent for believing this. Lord, show me how else I should be thinking about this. Give me your word. You know, we need to be diving into scripture. But also, I think we believe that those beliefs are useful.
Okay.
There's an element of us, there's a part of us that believes that it's useful or protective.
Okay.
And that's where it's kind of bringing in those other points of awareness where we talk about wounds and vows. And those are kind of those ones that like really stick around.
Got it.
And the enemy knows you guys. He knows your weaknesses. He knows, you know, your wounds. He knows these areas in your past where you have been wounded and maybe are hanging on to unforgiveness. And like, so he can present these, and that's all he can do is present a lie and then hope that you consent to it. And that's a really big piece right there.
Yeah.
We have to consent to the lie for it to affect us.
Yeah. One of the things I really like about growing in this point of awareness, like aware of the false beliefs in my life, is I can start to get better. I kind of alluded to this earlier, but I can start to recognize better when the enemy is presenting me another like variation of that false belief.
Yeah.
Right. So the enemy, it's not like every thought that passes through our mind and that even we become consciously aware of is like one that we are actively choosing. Right? The enemy can tempt us. The enemy can introduce thoughts. The world can tempt us. Advertisers can tempt us. And they can, I don't want to say plant thoughts as if they're like, they're there and there's some sort of permanency, but they can be offered to us. I like the analogy of a train of thought passing through. And I think this is important because people can, I don't want you guys going all scrupulous and thinking like, oh, well, I felt inclined to lust here and I didn't indulge in it, but like I felt inclined. What is it? Like, what does that mean? Like,
what does that mean about me?
It just means that you're tempted. That's it.
Yeah.
And temptation is always going to be part of the journey from now until you die.
Yeah.
Christ was tempted. Okay, so that doesn't necessarily mean that there was a sin. So the enemy can offer these false beliefs, and there's a difference between just kind of looking at it and being like, yeah, no thanks, I'm not going to indulge in that one, versus starting to indulge in it, right?
Yeah.
And you start to know it, whether you're indulging or not, by the fruits that are showing up. So, okay,
Yes.
I like to put a little distinction here, disclaimer, that temptation is normal. It's always going to be there. And then we get to choose with our will, like you've been saying, whether or not we're going to indulge with that lustful thought, indulge with that,
Yes.
that greedy thought, indulge with that envious thought. We get to choose.
Another way you could say indulge is consent.
Yes.
Too, and say like, oh yeah, I kind of like that. And even going into that place of curiosity, just being like, oh, like let's think about this a little bit more and ruminate on it a little bit more. And then it starts to turn into this consent at that point.
Yeah. What I love to do, even, and this is kind of like a little strategy here, but what I love to do even in spiritual direction, when somebody feels tempted, all right, the reason why something is tempting is because we perceive that there is some good that's being offered to us. And I remember being in a talk that Matt Fradd was giving, and somebody's just like, how do we get people to stop looking at porn? He's just like, how about leaning into it and asking that bold question of like, hey, tell me what you like about porn. Like, tell me what you like. What is appealing to you about this temptation that is inclining you to get curious and indulge and grasp onto? What's the good that you think you're going to gain from this? We really have to understand that, because oftentimes what happens is we just say temptation, it's just bad, get rid of it, but we never identify or get in touch with the good. That could even be a good that God is drawing us to or has designed for us to pursue. We never get in touch with that good that we're pursuing and just recognize that temptation is just a disordered way, meaning it's never going to lead to that good, a disordered way to kind of take a shortcut to that good. And it's just like, okay, I know that say for example, the pornography, I know that I'm seeking, say, some sort of connection with somebody else. But I also, and I think that is good, but I also know that this way of going about it, this lie that pornography is going to satisfy, is never going to actually lead to the connection that I'm seeking. And I have all of this evidence to be able to say that. So therefore, I'm choosing with my will to allow this temptation to pass rather than indulge in it. And every time we do indulge, though, you guys, every time we indulge, it gets harder to let it pass the next time.
It does.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you're feeding that fire. So walking away from this, the strategy for this would be something like, I think first, you do need to do like a thought recon or thought download. Like write it out on a piece of paper, because like we were saying, it's like thoughts are kind of slippery. Right. So you kind of want to write it out and like put yourself like space between you and your thought. And then ask yourself a couple questions. What if this thought were optional? What if I'm going to be held responsible for this thought at the end of my life? Like whether or not I consented to this. And is the opposite of this thought true? Or is something else true?
Or could it be true?
Could something else be true here? So these are just some questions where you can ask yourself, you pause, you circle that belief, whatever it is, and then you ask some of those questions. We're just looking at it from different angles. But really, guys, at the end of the day, our thoughts are optional. We don't have to believe them. And sometimes we need to repent for believing them. In fact, if they are lies and we have been consenting to them and then sinning from that place or falling into vice, which is always the fruit of a lie, we need to be repenting of them.
Yeah. This is where I think, guys, plug for our journal. Our journal really
Yes.
walks through the process of taking thoughts captive and being able to identify kind of the weeds amongst the wheat with this. And then also our just coaching. It's hard if we've been sitting in a false belief to really recognize it for what it is. And our coaches that we've trained, they've been trained to slowly, gently bring this into the light so that you see things that perhaps you didn't see by yourself. And this, again, guys, healing and growth is by God's design meant to be done with other people.
Yeah.
It's by God's design. We grow in relationship because we were created for an eternal relationship. So it just makes sense.
Yeah. And we take care of, actually, if you join us in our academy, this is like, we have coaches in there who can coach you through this.
Mm-hmm.
We take all of this stuff much deeper. And our academy is like, we cut the price in half.
Yeah. So Academy Plus, where you can actually get access to some more coaching, and you get access to some group coaching, and you get access to some of the workshops that kind of help you to dive into all the points of awareness. It's like $24.99 a month, $249.99 if you want to go for it for the whole year. So it's very affordable to be able to get in there. And we even have our 30 for 30 program as well on our new website.
I mean,
you can check that out.
It's a stupid amount of value.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like,
we want to make it really easy. So like, if you're listening to this, like, I can't afford it. It's like, yeah, but if you're still going to Starbucks, you can afford this. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get into this, number 3. Okay?
One more point from that other one. I want you guys, I get very passionate when I talk about this. So I just want to, that's a disclaimer. But this is such good news. This is really, really, really good news. This is not at all, I'm wagging my finger at you. You should know better. You need to repent. Yeah, guys, repentance is conversion, and we need to be doing it on a daily basis because we are not God. And the only way that we can receive him and his glory and his goodness is when we remove the obstacles to that. And that is through repentance. Yep. And so this is good news. If you are taking this as a judgment, please do not take it that way.
Yeah. Now,
which is a choice.
Now, Aaron, kind of leading into this third strategy, I mean, there's a part of me that hearing this stuff, it's just like, okay, this sounds a whole lot like positive thinking or just thought swapping that's there. Okay, I think this is, and even that, I've known that this could be even an obstacle in somebody listening here that frustrates them from moving forward and exploring their point of awareness.
Sure. Yeah. The ultimate lie, that kind of like, that's more of a nuanced version of like this lie, but it's this whole like, I've tried this and I can't change my thoughts, or this isn't working for me. I've tried it and I can't do it.
Yeah.
Right. And the truth here is like, there's no doubt in my mind that you have tried this. Maybe you've listened to some of our podcasts and you're like, I tried it. And I did it for like a day or a week or a month or a year. And still, that thing is still here. It's still sticking around here. And what's so cool about the Lord, and even in spiritual warfare, is that he takes everything and redeems it. Everything. And it like turns around, and you don't know the struggle that you've been in, how many people you've helped even through that struggle. So we can take even just these struggles of ours and offer it up for people. Anyway. So the truth here is there's no doubt in my mind that you have tried this before. If you say this, you've probably tried it. But the lie is that you can't change your thoughts. We just addressed that in the last one. And here's the lie that's kind of behind it, right? Where it's, shouldn't it kind of happen overnight? Right? Mm-hmm. And I just want you guys to think about this. It took, when I started kind of doing this work, I was 35, 36. It took 36 years of training my brain to think one way, right? If I am unintentional about trying to change it, and I'm kind of like lackadaisical and undisciplined and not really like praying about it on a daily basis, yeah, it's going to take a long time. It's definitely not going to happen overnight, especially with these belief systems.
Arguably, it's unjust for it to happen overnight.
Totally.
Right? Especially if we've gone down, we've indulged in a lie for the last 25 years, and all of a sudden it's just like, I'll just start thinking something new. Oh, it's like I believe it more powerfully than the thing that I've been nurturing for the last 25 years. Like, now, it's not that God can't do that in his mercy, but it's a great mercy.
It's a great grace
that's there. And mercy is when like you are actually tempering the just punishments of justice, right? For the good of the other person. Well, sometimes, like, for the good of the other person is to allow us to experience the struggle of putting on these new thoughts, these new beliefs, and willing it again and again and again. And guys, there's like, it's kind of like going to the gym and just wanting to take the shortcut and pump ourselves full of steroids and just be super muscular. Or you can even go some places now and they like have pectoral implants.
Oh, it's so weird.
Like, okay, it's
so weird looking.
Very weird, but it's this fake, it's facade, right?
Yeah.
And so
empty.
that will work starts to transform you from the inside out. Now, can the Lord do this overnight? Yes. Is it the ordinary way that he does it? No, it's not. So if the ordinary way that he does it is by coming alongside of us and willing us, even in those places where we feel weak, it's just like, I can do, because if you could just will it overnight, guys, it'd be very tempting for us to think that we could do this without God.
Oh.
And God never answers those prayers that require us to need him less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Something that you said, you kept saying the will, and it's so huge. Everything that I've read recently, it just feels like it's been popping out everywhere on spiritual warfare, is this element around using the will. Like, you have to, and we're
engaging
not,
the will, you're saying.
Yes, exactly. Engaging the will. And we're not saying remove our intellect, remove our emotions. We're not saying any of that, because those all work together. It all works together. It's a big dance. But Aquinas says the intellect informs the will. They have to work together. The will is a blind faculty. Even though it ultimately makes the final decision, it's getting its information from the intellect. So we have to think new thoughts so that we can choose new things, basically.
Yes, and oftentimes that begins with an act of the will. I don't really believe it, but I'm choosing to think it in any case whatsoever. And it's like, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. That's what that prayer is really saying. It's like, Lord, I believe in my head, but I don't really fully believe it in all of my being yet. Help my unbelief, right?
I don't
and that
feel
is the process. See how that prayer draws you into a relationship with Jesus, which is the ultimate goal here, folks.
I love this quote, and I want to, based off of what you just shared, this quote by St. John Henry Newman. I'm going to say it slowly. We can believe what we choose. So that's where you're saying, like, taking that act of the will first. I'm choosing this, and I can start to believe this. We can believe what we choose. We are answerable for what we choose to believe. We are answerable.
Yep.
For what we choose to believe.
Oh, I love that.
It's like both ends of the spectrum here. But that is one thing in the spiritual warfare. It's engaging your will has to be. Even exorcists will say this. They say, don't bring somebody into me that doesn't want to be free. Like, I'm not going to work with them.
Yeah.
Because their will has to be engaged. They have to want it, at least in the tiniest bit.
Yeah. Even Father Ripperger's protocol now, the beginning part of it, before somebody shows up for exercise, he said, somebody needs to like reach a certain level of virtue in order to even withstand the demands of an exorcism. And so helping somebody just get like a routine prayer life. One of the things they do with their protocol is they say you're going to do the Angelus at 6 a.m., 12 p.m., and 6 p.m. every single day. And people are like, can I do it at 7 o'clock? He's like, no, you got to do it at 6. Can I do it at 6:05? No, you got to do it at 6. That is will work that is taking place to do it. You don't really understand why you're doing it, but you're being trained in the process. In the same way, go back to my Karate Kid analogy, like wax on, wax off, paint the fence, do it this way. Like there is will work. I don't understand why I'm doing it, but eventually one day comes and it's just like you've grown in this capacity to be able to, you've grown in virtue at that point to be able to do the thing that you didn't really understand in the beginning, but now it's coming easier to you. Okay.
Yeah. So could you, because we're pretty much done here, but could you just, because you're the one who kind of explained this to me in the beginning, is you read the book.
Okay.
Or you dove in a little bit. But that dance back and forth between the intellect and the will and how they work together. Because you said first you need to kind of choose to believe something new. And that is like, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. That's a prayer. Lord, give me the grace to start to believe this new thing.
Well, that's a prayer, and it's an act of the will. Okay, so what you're doing here is you're starting to create a disposition for grace. Okay, and so even that prayer is an act of the will. It's an act of humility, and humility disposes us to grace. Okay, so what you're saying with that, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. You're saying, Lord, I kind of believe and I'm choosing to go forward, though I don't fully, my body and everything, all part of me is not fully conformity here, but I'm choosing to believe even without understanding, even without fully understanding. So I'm choosing, when you believe something without understanding, that's called trust. So you're placing your trust in the Lord because the Lord is trustworthy. And this starts to increase our capacity for faith, which increases our disposition to be infused with the theological virtue of faith, which starts to have its effects on us.
Yeah. And that statement that you just said, the Lord is trustworthy, that is a thought in your intellect that you can continue to go back to in that process.
Yes.
So it kind of strengthens the will
Yes.
in that way. Okay, Lord, I'm choosing to believe even though I don't fully understand, because you are trustworthy.
And every time I think that I'm in a place where I trust the Lord completely, the Lord has a way of gently revealing to me where I trust him all the way over here. I trust him in all this stuff, but then there's just one little piece that I don't. I've got conditions on my trust. Father Michael Schmitz gave a great homily on this last Sunday, where it's just like the conditions that we place on our trust in the Lord. And the Lord wants those things dealt with. So those conditions are there because there is some false belief that is, there's a weed amongst the wheat that the Lord wants dealt with.
Yeah.
Right? And guys, we've got a lot of them. That's not to overwhelm you. One at a time, one false belief at a time.
That's it. And that's the final point that I want to make here, because I think this final lie, I've tried and it hasn't worked, or I've tried to change my thoughts and it hasn't worked. I think there's a little bit of rushing, a little bit of like impatience behind this. And just, we want to be compassionate and merciful to ourselves, and also accepting to be like, okay, yeah, it took this much time to build this belief, to build this neural pathway in my brain. You know, everything is probably going to be sped along more because of grace, but also like to bring that to the Lord and be like, here's where I'm at right now, and to not like rush yourself through this process. It is a process, and this is a process that we teach and train our coaches to take their clients through. But it's a process, and it's always helpful to let people know that out of the gate.
Love it. Okay. So wrapping up here, the first enemy strategy they uses is that it doesn't matter what we think. It matters only what we do. Okay. Address that. Not the case. All right. Certainly matters what we think, and we want to be in integrity with our interior life and our exterior life. That's really what Christ shares in the Sermon on the Mount. All right. That second thing is that we can't control the way that we think. Wrong. Like we may have some habitual ways that feel very comfortable to us, and we've habituated a way of thinking over the years, and that has been solidified in our flesh through well-worn neural pathways. But we know through neuroplasticity that we're not stuck there. There was once a belief that was really the paradigm that you can't really teach an old dog new tricks. That's where we get that old adage, right? It's false. It's not true. You can teach an old dog new tricks. You can continue to learn. I think it gets a little bit harder, right? That's okay for it to be harder. There's still great work that you make. Harder the more you've nurtured these false beliefs, as we see even in some young kids that when we've coached them, like teenagers, boom, they can just move pretty quickly because they haven't really built that belief system up that, say, a 60-year-old person has built that belief system up.
60-year-old.
60-year-old.
Not 6-year-old.
But no, we're not coaching 6-year-olds. But nonetheless, whether you're 16 or 60, you can still choose what you want to believe.
Yes.
All right. And then the final thing here that we should be able to do this quickly and see the gains of it quickly. All right. Maybe if there's an extraordinary grace that the Lord gives you, and you can receive it in humility and still cling to the Lord, which really I could understand the only reason why he would give that. He never gives us grace that's going to cause us to think that we'd be tempted to think that we need him less. It's going to be something that takes some time here, you guys, but it's worth it. I mean, it's going to take time to consider.
What are you doing otherwise? What's the alternative?
Exactly.
You just keep getting lied to and like keep consenting to that?
Yeah. It makes me think of the movie The Wrestler, where at the tragic ending of that, he experienced some transformation, and then he has a wounding moment in this character. And he goes back to being this pro wrestler with like the fake wrestling, the fake blood, the fake praise, the fake muscles, everything was just fake about it. And he's just like, you can't hurt me in here. Here I don't get hurt, right? That's where our false beliefs, we think that they're protecting us, but everything that he was doing in that false lifestyle was leading down a path of destruction. Okay. So what we're getting at here too is like, this really is a life or death decision that's being put in front of you. Are you going to continue to go down the path because it feels familiar and it has this false sense of protection, but it's slowly killing you? Or are you going to say, Lord, help my belief? I believe, help my unbelief. And just humble yourself before the Lord, knowing that you can't overcome this by yourself, because you can't, and that's okay. And allow the Lord to start to court you and draw you into a deeper relationship, which is, that's what we were created for here, folks.
Yeah.
Cool. And we do it all in our academy. So you're not meant to do this by yourself. We created the Metanoia Catholic Academy, which you can join for free. And then we have our core subscription, and then our Academy Plus subscription, where we really do a lot more hands-on work with you. We're actually opening up for our coaches and trainers to actually coach you guys.
And guys,
in the
it
Academy Plus.
$29.99 a month.
$24.99.
Sorry, $24.99.
What are you doing?
Oh, slash that price. It's $24.99 a month.
It's amazing.
That's it. Like, you get so much help in this place, and it's if you're like me from upstate New York, it's a 24-cut pizza. That's how much. Actually, I think they cost more.
They cost more now. One pizza. Cool.
Those things are huge, though, and they're delicious. Anyway, okay, so
join us in the Academy. That's the invitation here. And if you're not a person that's like, I don't really want to do the Academy, even though it's like a free version or something like that, we also have 30 for 30 on our CatholicCoaching.com page. Take a look at Get Coached. Every single one of our resident coaches is offering a 30 for 30, $30, 30 minutes. A lot can happen in 30 minutes. Uncover some of those false beliefs and get you moving forward. Cool.
All right, guys. See you in there.
Yep. Hey, thanks for sticking with us in the Catholic Coaching Podcast. If you like what you heard,
please like and subscribe, and we'll see you again.